Hey everybody, Zach Didmars here for Fish Talk Magazine. Thank you for tuning in for another installment of Live with Lenny. Tonight we're going to be talking about 3 must-have tactics for fishing on the Chesapeake Bay. Before we get started, I'd like to thank our sponsor, Yamaha. If you head on over to fishtalkbag.com/Yamaha, you can find a whole slew of local dealers and service providers. Be sure to check that out. Also like to thank Coastal Conservation, Maryland, for making this happen. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce our angler-in-chief, Mr. Lenny Rudo.
What's happening, Zach?
Not a whole lot, I feel like this was yesterday, but we do this once a month, and man, a blink of an eye.
But, no doubt. I'll tell you what's up with me, man. I'm cold. The wind is just blowing through my house, and I'm sick of it. Could we please have some warm weather?
We had a great week last week. Friday was beautiful. I fished 4 days straight last week, and trying my best at the CCA pickerel tournament, and we had a great day of catfishing too. We'll get into that later, but
well, that work paid off because you did take a prize in that tournament, did you not?
I believe I might have clinched the slam by like an inch.
You're listed on the website as the slam winner.
Oh, excellent! So it's official. Well, hooray!
Nice, congrats.
Yeah, I don't think I get that cool copper pickerel though. Maybe next year we'll see.
I'm sure you'll win a decent prize, and we'll do some prizes from CCA for the invasive species count later on.
Right on.
We do have some scheduling announcements, right? And people, I apologize. I had to write all this down. Zach didn't write it all down this time. I wrote it down, so I gotta put on my glasses to read it up. So on the 8th of this month, the Poquoson Boat and Fishing Flea Market is at the Poquoson High School. So that should be a fun event. On the 8th and 9th is the Essex Middle River Fishing Flea Market at the Rosedale Volunteer Fire Hall. And the 16th is the Annapolis Saltwater Expo at the Elks Lodge, the Annapolis Elks. And that's a new date. Normally that's been in February. This year it is in March. And the 16th, I believe, is a Sunday, right? Yes, it is. But don't let that deter you, people. Come on by. We'll be there. I'll be there. Will you be there?
Me?
You.
Yeah, probably. But you know what? Hey, you forgot to mention, there's 4 fish talkers presenting at that. Yourself.
That's right.
Eric Packer, David Rudo, and Dylan Waters. So in the seminar room. So there's...
And talking on all different kinds of topics.
Yep.
We got a whole lot of stuff going on. So that should be a fun event.
Yeah, Alltac will be there with tons of great deals. I think CC will be there. So it's a great event. Definitely not one to miss.
Absolutely. Also, we do want to mention, we just got word of this. This is a scoop, folks. This is a total news scoop. New World Boats, which is based at Smith's Marine on the Severn, on March 29th from 10 to 3, they will be having an open house. Come see the LTB 25. This is a pretty cool looking boat. And if you were at the Chesapeake Bay Boat Show, you may have seen it. They did have one there. They also have the Wolfboro boats, but this is the one that really catches my eye right here. So March 29th, 10 to 3, Smith's Marine. That is definitely one that folks who are looking for that hot new fish boat, they're going to want to check out. Very interesting. Completely new boat for our area.
Yeah, slick boat. I got a good look at it at that Timonium show as well.
Nice.
All right. You want to go ahead and do the invasive count?
Winners. Who's the winners this week?
Dave said it was an awesome boat. Saw it at the show. Very cool. Let's see here. All right. Well, first off, for anyone who's not, is just tuning in or is not aware, the Great Chesapeake Invasive Count runs for a whole calendar year. That's April 1st through March 31st. So still plenty of time to participate as the weather warms up. You can go out, catch snakeheads, flatheads, and blue cats. And all you do is register for free right at that URL and take a picture and use the iAngler app to upload the species and length. And you can do weight, location, any information you're willing to provide, because it all goes to fishery managers. This is you're a citizen scientist. You get to go fishing and collect data and help out understand the populations of all these invasive species, and then you get to win some really cool prizes.
It's well worth doing. And on top of that, I do believe it's going to be taking place sort of on a rolling basis. So it'll start again on April 1 this year. And again, as Zach mentioned, it's free, people. It's free, and you can win all kinds of cool prizes. We had a bunch of entries ourselves in this past week because we did some blue catfishing. We'll talk about that later. But all right, don't let me delay. Let's get to the winners.
All right, you ready?
Ready? What? I didn't know it was catfish because I've been sitting here for months saying, I love the toolkit. I love the toolkit. I got a toolkit. Wow. Oh my God.
Congratulations. Congratulations. I think that was like a 9-inch catfish that you submitted for this. So, guys, size does not matter. Size does not matter. Just any catfish will do.
It might not have been as big as yours, but it wasn't 9 inches.
Well,
it was bigger than
apparently
that.
Size doesn't matter when you're winning prizes, because I get the same prize. I should get like a much bigger prize, don't you think?
I don't know. You get to look at.
I already have those grips, guys. So when I get them,
CCA.
When I get those grips, maybe we'll do a giveaway.
Oh wait, wait! The name changed. You won the tools too?
Yeah.
Oh my God. Okay, so I just want to say, people, look.
It's not rigged.
I haven't had an entry. I had one 2 weeks ago, and then I think 6 last week. And prior to that, I hadn't had an entry in like 4 months. It had been a while. How many did you do, Zach? You had your big one.
Yeah, just the one big 42-pounder, I think it was.
So people, look, if you don't register for this and participate, you're crazy. Look at how easy this was. Not rigged, and look at how easy it is to win.
Simon thinks it's rigged.
It's not rigged. Well, I'm sure we got some other winners. Come on, put some other names up there. So.
We don't. That's it. And I knew this would be a little awkward, but I think that it was just so cold. I don't think people were out fishing this much. They weren't as crazy as us. So we went out. It was supposed to be a beautiful day, and it ended up being pretty freezing. We were underdressed. It was cold.
That is totally true. You are absolutely right.
All right, Simon's going fishing. Go get him, Redcoat.
Get him, Simon. This last month was so dreary. Maybe we're the only ones who got out and got them.
I think we were the only submissions. We submitted all 6 fish that day. So
yeah.
Anyway, we had some of Dave. Dave, thanks for Robert. Thanks for checking out the catfish video, and that is on our YouTube channel. We just posted that yesterday of our trip last week, and yeah, turned out to be a pretty good day. We got to thank Mike McGuire for giving us some of his hot spots over on the Potomac.
Mike did us a solid. Mike did us a solid. Although I recall his response to your fish was what? Only 42 pounds?
Definitely bigger. Definitely bigger. Yeah, someone else called it tiny on Instagram, so I appreciate that. Herb said everyone else was pickerel fishing. That's why they.
That could be. That could be.
All right. Well, we're talking about it. Why don't we take a look at this 42-pounder?
Take us right to slide 1. There he is.
Dumb luck. Come on, that's just dumb luck. He could have been anybody, but that bit on the lighter cat slayer, which is still a heavy rod, and it handled it. I thought it was like a 20-incher, and this 40-inch 42-pounder came up.
Totally. So we were shooting this video on gearing up for ginormous catfish. And we intentionally brought some very undersized rods, and then we brought the Okuma cat slayers, which are designed specifically for these fish. And I was thinking to myself in my head, well, this is great. I'll use the little rods and I'll hook into a really big fish and be able to show on camera just how important it is to, have the right stuff, get those cat slayers. Well, of course, the biggest one I caught was like, I don't know, 20 inches, 22 inches. But fortunately, you got the big one. Nathan's saying, what are they biting on? Nathan, we got them on cut mud shad, on cut white perch, and on cut bunker. And I honestly, I think the most bites came on the white perch. Don't you think?
I think so too.
Yeah, and it was very interesting.
And the perch and the shad were both fresh, so they didn't touch the eel. They didn't touch the frozen bunker. So I think fresh.
I think got one on bunker.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, we got one on bunker. But you're right. The bunker was frozen. The other fish were cut fresh. And the eel, it went untouched. And we also learned.
Eels were live, too.
We learned a lot about eels. Because people, if you cut an eel in half, and then put the front half on your hook. So it's, putting out some scent and you think those catfish are going to love it. That half eel will live through like basically a whole day of fishing. Very, very interesting. I knew they were tough, but I knew they were that tough. It's like a bull minnow. You can throw a bull minnow against a brick wall 5 times and then put it back in the minnow bucket. It's fine. That eel was just that rugged. Anyway, as far as current bites go, these guys are a pretty darn good bet. I would say that we had a slow bite, right? It was on the slow side. It was tough.
Yeah,
it was steady.
We were out for 4 hours ish. So we caught like 6 fish, had a ton of shy bites. The water temps were in the 30s. So we got a lot of bites, but we only had 6 solid hookups.
Yeah, the water temps were still, I think it was 37.8 when we dropped the anchor. So the water temps have still been surprisingly cold. And this was right near, where did we launch out? We launched out of Fort Washington. We didn't go terribly far. And we tried a couple spots and didn't get any, well, we got a couple of those tepid bites where they didn't take the bait. They just kind of bopped it a few times and then left. And then we moved into a depression, and there we started catching the fish. And we hung out there the rest of the afternoon.
Yeah. And while we're talking about it, I should mention we have a new addition to our charter fishing guide, and his name's Captain Steve Blanchard, and he is pretty much the only charter guide that I'm aware of. There wasn't quite a few years ago. So anyway, if you want to get out there and catch some monster blue cats on the Potomac, he's out of DC, and there's his website. So check it out.
Nice. And this is a great time to do it. They are.
He's on like a 33-foot Grady, so it will be.
Oh, no way.
Yeah. And he's right. It's just a short hop to the fishing zone. So
that's like lap of luxury catfish fishing.
I know. I'm kind of thinking about hitting them up.
we were all crammed into my little 16-foot skiff. Floor aboard.
It's a roomy boat. I'm always surprised.
It does good. I love that little boat. So, folks, if you want to check out the video, head for our YouTube channel. After this, of course, head for our YouTube channel, and you can see how we did it, how we geared up, what we did right, what we did wrong. We like I say, I brought those little rods on purpose. We made some botches sort of on purpose, just to illustrate that, they're catfish. There's lots of them. They're not incredibly complex fish, but it really does make a difference if you gear up and prepare for them in specific, as opposed to just doing whatever. What depth were we in, Nathan? We were in 16 to 22 feet, and actually we were right on the edge, which is usually a good move for these fish. And as the boat swung on the anchor, you might be in 16 feet 1 minute and 20 feet the next, that's just what you want. You want to be sort of right on the edge of the drops with these fish. And I should mention, folks, any questions, any comments, pop them in anytime. That's why we do this live. It's so you can pop in your comments. We can get them answered. Now, this is Fort Washington is where we go out of, head towards DC Bridge. We actually went the other way. Well, actually, no, we went both ways. We went towards it first, and then we went down from it. But, the truth of the matter is, in that entire zone, either or could really totally do the trick. It's a matter of just moving around a little bit, finding them. But they're all throughout there. Really, anywhere. I forget the name of that first bridge in DC, but anywhere from that first bridge all the way down to the 301 bridge, you're in prime territory. You're in totally prime territory. So try a few different spots anywhere through there, and you're very likely to find them. Anglers Arsenal is saying they go out of Marshall Hall, fish just outside of Fort Washington Park near the main channel. That's pretty much exactly where we were. Yeah, we were. In fact, at one point, we pulled the anchor to try and maneuver the boat just a little bit, just to get a little different on that depression. And we were so close to the channel edge at 1 minute. I looked down, I'm like, holy cow, we're in 45 feet of water. We were right by that channel edge. So that's totally good stuff right there. All right, why don't you take us to the next picture, Zach, unless we got any more blue cat questions. Hey, yellow perch. So, the yellow perch run has really changed a lot in recent times. It should be really good right now. I've gone twice now for them and completely struck out. I have not caught one yet. I went, today's Thursday. 2 days ago, I tried the Upper Patuxent, launched out of Wasons. Didn't see one, didn't talk to anybody who had one. They should be there now. I don't know what the deal is, people. It's like the perch run's been turned upside down and on its head. But I'm going to keep going and looking for them because, man, they're awesome fish. They taste great. They're gorgeous. I think they're one of the most beautiful fish you can catch in our region. And they will run. It's going to happen. It's become really, really difficult to time it. It really has, and figure out exactly where to go. I think I'll try the Eastern Shore next. Probably either tomorrow morning I might go, and if I don't, or maybe even if I do, also early next week. And it looks like it's going to really warm up next week, which is going to trigger some fast action. And these runs, one thing to keep in mind about the yellow perch run, it goes off fast. I mean, it might last 3 days. It might last 10 days. No way to tell. All depends on the weather. But it does go off fast. When it's hot, it's super hot. And when it's dead, it's super dead. So you can literally hit a good yellow perch run spot one day and catch 50 fish and go there the very next day and not catch a thing. So get out from while you can. Zach, why don't you go ahead and take us to the next slide, because this goes right into the white perch run. So I'm saying it'll be on the Eastern Shore. Yep. And Millington today looking for perch. Nothing but little catfish. Upper Magathie full stringers. Okay, nice. You know, Nathan, the Magathie is tough, man. I would like to go there. The problem with the Magathie is finding a place to launch, right? Access is not awesome. You can go to Beechwood and fish off the shoreline there, and that place can be really good. So that's a good option. Wow, maybe I'll go to the Magathie tomorrow. I don't know. It's so hard to figure out where to go. So the white perch. Let's talk white perch. Zach, go ahead and take us to the next one, because this is a real oddity. This is from the Patuxent last March. Okay, this is not a current photo. This is last year's photo. Here's what's really weird. While I was there, I talked to a couple guys on shore. Oh, wait a minute. I'm gonna pause here because MR is saying he tried Y Mills, Hillsborough, Tuckahoe, Greensboro bridges and struck out. Woo! Yeah, that's kind of the whole whole passel of Middle Bay, Western Shore, or Eastern Shore spots right there. So on the upper packs, 2 days ago, I didn't get any. Now I got to say, it was very tough fishing. It was blowing like it's blowing today. So it was impossible to fish what I like to fish for the whites, which is a shad dart with a grass shrimp. Couldn't do it. Nothing with light line. You had to use at least an ounce or more of weight, or the wind would just blow a huge bow into your line. You couldn't feel anything. So it was difficult. But I talked to some guys fishing the shoreline. They had caught some white perch casting out bloodworms on bottom rigs, which I thought was really interesting. Made me wish I had bloodworms. I did not. But, you know, that might be the move right now. Because, you know, again, with the wind, you had to have something heavy. You couldn't fish, you know, what you might normally want to fish. But the weird thing is, the white perch should be following the yellow perch, not preempting them in the first place. So, again, it's like the perch runs have just been turned upside down and on their heads. Don't know why. You know, we had a relatively cold winter this year. It wasn't like the 5 warm ones we had prior to. I don't know. Now, interestingly, the water temp that we saw in the upper packs was in the low 40s. It was 42 when we launched. It was 45 when we pulled out. And we did go up the western branch and look for them up there at one point, and it got warmer and warmer the farther you went. We saw it as high as 50, but still no perch. So I don't know, people. All bets are off. Roll the dice. But now is the time. And I'm telling you, don't be discouraged by hearing folks like me and MR mention that we went out and tried these spots and didn't catch, because it's going to go off like a firecracker when it does, and it could be any day. Literally could be any day. I wouldn't be surprised if someone popped in with a comment right now and said, I got a bunch of yellow perch today. Like, that's kind of how the yellow perch run goes. All right, we got one more bite. Let's talk about one more bite before we get to our tactics, and that's crappie. We're just starting to hear some better crappie report. You know, crappie will bite right through the winter, right? Especially if you put a minnow right in front of them. They will bite. But we're just starting to get more reports from folks who are out in ponds, lakes, tributaries, often fishing for other stuff. And oh, got a crappie. Oh, got a crappie. They're starting to pick up the pace. I would expect that with the weather that is being forecast next week, if the weatherman is even remotely correct, which is a flip of the coin, but if he's even remotely correct and it warms up the way they're saying, by the end of next week, I think the crappie are going to be on fire. It's normally what happens. You get a nice, week of warm up or so, and these fish just go off. They feed hard. Minnows on darts under bobbers or marabou jigs, 2-inch tube jigs, red and white, blue and white, or just white, kind of my favorites. They're going to really start happening now. So, okay. So Anglers Arsenal is mentioning he heard some reports of yellows at Allen's Fresh. Now, Eric Packard, one of our contributors, has been to Allen's Fresh twice within the last 10 days or so, and both times struck out. He also heard a report of some yellows there, and that was why he went there. But he struck out both times, and he is a good angler. What's really super interesting is one of those trips, he actually caught a bunch of, guess what? Who can guess what? Can you guess, Zach?
Trout.
No.
I thought he caught some stalkers.
That was it. That was it. The Calvert Cliffs pond. No, Allen's Fresh is it's a perch run spot. It's the river going off the creek, off the river. No, blue cats.
Oh, that's right. The little blue cats.
He called blue cats, and he said that they were so thick. He had his kayak with his side scan going. He said they were so thick that they blocked out his side scan. He had no bait. He was fishing lures only. He caught 24, and half of them were snags. So they were packed in. Hopefully that's changed, and hopefully there are more yellow perch moving through Allen's Fresh. That used to be a primo yellow perch run spot.
Hey, you mentioned the Calvert Park. We got a question. Would you like to tackle that one?
Oh boy. Okay. If snakeheads are invasive, why won't they let us fish them at Calvert Cliffs Park? I'm told there are lots of snake. Patrick, there are lots of snakeheads there. That was a awesome spot to go for them for a long time, and it really stinks that we're not allowed to go fishing for them there. You bring up an interesting point. We should probably circle back with the park people and see if we can get them to change that. What happened was during COVID, remember COVID, right? The parks, remember how some of the parks just got jam-packed? Everybody was looking for stuff to do outside where they weren't indoors, crammed in with other people. And Calvert Cliffs was getting just huge flows of people that were walking down that boardwalk through past the ponds and down towards the beach. What happened was the park started getting complaints of people fishing. Now, there are two sides to this story. The first being that fishing is not interfering with people on the boardwalk, and it really shouldn't be problematic for anybody. But the second side to the story is, as I understand it, I was told that there were some people who were standing on the boardwalk where the people walked past, and they were flinging lures. And people were like, whoa, ducking lures. Now, in my humble opinion, what the park people should have done was they should have said no fishing from the boardwalk, because a lot of the people that go there and snakehead fish would put on waders and wade out anyway. And there's some shoreline spots you can get to off the boardwalk. They should have said no fishing from the boardwalk, right? That would have solved the problem. Instead, they just put up a big, fat, ugly no fishing sign. So, maybe that could be revisited now that COVID is ancient history and people aren't crammed in anymore.
Sorry to interject, but I think Eric said that people were wade fishing, and they were saying it was destructive to the indigenous grasses. So,
well, sure they did. They had to come up with something.
So don't hurt the indigenous grasses and let the invasives thrive. So
Right, right. Yeah, I know they got complaints, and I know they were from people who were just walking the boardwalk and worried about the fishing, and it really is ridiculous. It's beyond ridiculous. I wonder if we could circle back now and get them to reassess the situation there, because that is a phenomenal snakehead spot. Eric took me there, and we caught snakes, and it was really cool, and it was a great spot. And as I recall, Zach, I think you went biking past on that day, and then jumped off your bike and whipped out a breakdown rod.
Yep.
What's an indigenous grass? That's a good question, Dave. Particularly considering that there's an awful lot of grass that's not indigenous that is in Maryland, and who knows what you're stepping on, right? I do think it's rather difficult to step on grass when you're wading hip deep in water, though. Am I wrong about that?
I think they're talking about the SAV, but who knows?
Well, that'd be pretty funny if that was the case, because that pond is choked. Like, you have to look for a path to retrieve your lure through, because it's so full of grass. But
we got a bunch of comments from Simon. Just rewinding back to the white perch. He was getting bites from whites last Sunday on a bug, drawing them through Skipton area and caught them chasing baits.
Cool.
And grubs and bugs on a short drop shot. It's gotten the best reactions. That's
nice.
Another question here. Has the DNR ever settled the issue with minnows on shad darts?
This came up last month. This has come up so many times, I can't even tell you. I can't tell you how many emails I've gotten about this. I can't even tell you. The short answer is no, not yet. We are expecting some sort of announcement in the very near future. I gotta say, I'm just gonna say it like I did last month. I love the DNR. I think they do a lot of great work. This was a total fail. They had a full year to deal with this. This was a completely unintended mess that was so unnecessary, and they had a whole year to deal with it. And unfortunately, no, we don't have any solid news on that yet. Eric asked someone there recently, and I think they said the 7th or the 17th they should have an announcement, something like that. But right now, no, there's still no final word. It's a shame. It's a shame.
In the comment period the DNR had, which was kind of quiet, I think the proposal was to limit the size of the live line. So if you have a 3-4 inch or less, because most people aren't live lining with,
There were a couple choices. There was one regarding that. There was one on hook size or lure, lure versus hook. There were a couple options, couple comments. There was a comment period opened all the way back in May or June, which should have resolved this. But then they tweaked things and then put another comment period open. Is it still open? Or it was just recently open?
Yeah, I think it ended in February, but I shared it on Facebook. But anyway, hopefully that's the case. It's like 3 inches or less. That's a minnow. No circle hook needed.
Yeah, unnecessary botch on this one, people.
Thankfully, I was pickerel fishing in freshwater, and I have to worry about it. So you don't have to worry about that in lakes and ponds. So
I can tell you that the last time I was perch fishing, I did get checked, and the DNR officer did not bring it up. Now, every officer is different. They all have a different attitude. They all look at things a little different. So, you certainly can't take that to the bank. But I did get checked. I got my license checked, got my safety gear checked. That was it. So.
All right.
All right. What do we got next? We ready to talk tactics?
Let's go.
I think we're ready to talk tactics. All right, people. So much has changed on the bay in, the last 5 years, much less the last decade, much less my lifetime. And there are some tactics that, we might have used at different times, but weren't necessarily what I would call critical to know. The three we're going to talk about tonight, I'm going to say for 2025, are all critical. I could be wrong. The fisheries could totally turn around again. We did finally have a cold, wet winter. You know, who knows what's going to happen next. But these all have come on big for me recently. One is an old one that came back. So let's talk about them. Let's pop up that first slide, Zach. So here we got a popping cork and a mackerel, which seems a little weird, right? You don't normally think of popping corks for mackerel. Those of you who read Fish Talk have probably seen the articles that we've done on this. And I think we talked about it on One Live with Lenny prior. Using a popping cork on mackerel is highly effective. It's taken over for me from spoons for being my main method. Now, we've talked about that before. You can go to Fish Talk Mag. You can type in mackerel or popping corks, and you can find these articles. We don't need to spend a whole bunch of time on it tonight. I'll just really briefly bottom line it. Rather than the pop, pop, pause you use down south for fish like reds and specks, you give a sort of a constant chugging retrieve with it, and you make those rattles on the popping cork, just clack, 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 clack. Keep it moving constantly. You do it fast. It really does turn the mackerel on. But, please go ahead. Oh, nice job, Zach. Dang, man, you found that link fast. So that's the article right there. It works on blues and rockfish that are busting water too, by the way. But, please take us to the next slide, because the popping corks, you also got to get one now for the specks and the reds. Speckled trout and redfish fishing has just been getting better and better throughout the bay. You know, when the reds, clear on up to the Magathy. On the specks, you know, up into Eastern Bay maybe. And the thing is, the popping cork, when used with a very different retrieve, now we're back to the pop, pop, pause, right? Your standard sort of Floridian way of fishing the popping cork, or North Carolina way of fishing the popping cork. You do the couple pops and then you stop. And what this lets you do is work a jig like you see here, or you can use a plastic shrimp. Both work great. It lets you work it over a weed bed. And if you've ever tried to just cast and retrieve a jig over a weed bed, let's say you're in 3 or 4 feet of water and the weeds come up 2 feet off the bottom, man, it is super duper frustrating. And I don't care what you do, or at least what I do, you always end up snagging weeds. You always end up snagging weeds. It's like impossible to avoid. You know the fish are in there. You want to fish the weeds, but it's like impossible. Popping cork is your answer. Areas like the Honga, the Tangier Sound, where you got lots of weed beds, where often that's where you're going to find your fish. If you don't have a popping cork, I'm telling you, you're going to regret it. This just, it allows you to fish so much better without, you know, you're still going to snag some weeds, but for the most part, without constantly snagging into the weeds. It just works really, really good. Now, immediately you got to wonder, is it going to work as well when you're fishing, say, the shallows of the South, where this past summer I caught more redfish than rockfish? The answer is I don't know. I didn't try it. I was casting jigs. We don't have the weed beds in the South, didn't have to worry about it. So I was constantly throwing jigs. And I got to tell you, people, I regret that. I can't tell you how much I wish now I had tried the popping cork, simply to figure out if it was as effective in the scenario where you're retrieving through 2, 3, 4 feet of water next to riprap or a pier, as opposed to, you know, over a weed bed. I just don't know. I promise this summer I will give it a shot. I will try. But regardless, if you're fishing anywhere, say from the Bay Bridge south, where you may encounter weeds, Eastern Bay, the Chop Tank, any of these zones, if you don't get popping corks and bring them on your boat, I guarantee you there's going to be a day when you're fishing when you're going to go, oh man, I remember when he said I should really have popping corks aboard. You're going to regret not having them. Get a few popping corks, put them in your boat. And again, the actual technique, when you're fishing for the fish up top, that constant chug. But when you're fishing for these kinds of species, your specks, your reds, in your shallows kind of areas, it's going to be a pop, pop, pause. Give it maybe a 2-3 second pause. Walt's saying he needs to collect more data on popping corks. Walt, please. Walt's like, he's like the king of data and numbers and fish. And he did figure out the ultimate trolling speed for mackerel. He figured out a formula for it. That's another one we got an article on. That's what I call a max speed Walt. If you do mackerel trolling speed at the website, that article will pop right up, and you can do the look at the water temperature and know exactly. You do follow his formula. You'll know exactly what speed to troll at to get your premium Spanish mackerel trolling speed, and it works. It works. I've tried since he came out. Walt, man, it's probably been 4 or 5 years since you did that. I think I've done it multiple times since then. It totally works. All right. Oh, well, Dave's saying the 4 Horsemen popping corks work the best from my experience. Good info. I can't tell you I have a favorite brand. I haven't used a ton. I got some from. Oh man, the first that last slide. Help me out, Zach. Who was that last slide? Shucks.
Hardhead Custom Baits.
Hardhead Custom Baits. Thank you. I got some. They came mackerel fishing with me. They're the ones that clued me in when the popping corks on the mackerel, and they brought them, and I saw how well they worked, and then I got a bunch, and I can't tell you, I've tried a bunch of different kinds. So 4 Horsemen. That's interesting. All right. All right. Whoop. Does anyone have success on snakes with popping corks? Huh.
I don't know, but I'm going to try it.
That's a really interesting question.
I mean, you got popping frogs, and why wouldn't they? I've actually had snakeheads hit my bobber when I was drifting with minnows. I throw a minnow out, cast shoreline, maximize my chances, and I've had them hit and then I switched out. I switched out my bobber for a spook in case that ever happened again. So I used a spook as a bobber.
Now, Zach, you may remember one of the first times you took me to one of your spots. I was throwing a minnow under a bobber, and I think I had 2 blow-ups on my bobber that day.
Yeah.
That does happen. That's really interesting. That's some good thinking, D-Lab. Got to try that. Rockwell popping corks around Kent Island last year. Yeah, the rocks, absolutely. They'll go for it. When I was first started using them for the mackerel, we had more rockfish around back then. We'd have more often than not mixed mackerel, bluefish, rockfish, and all 3 species totally went for it. No question, they were activated by those rattles. MR is saying cupped or oval. I've been using the ovals. I'm not going to tell you that that's best. I can't tell you that I've tried the cupped, but I do think the clacking rattles on there, that seems to be the critical feature, because I've had popping corks that just pop and don't rattle, and they've fallen by the wayside. They definitely let that clack, clack, clack definitely seems to get them juiced up. All right, you want to take us on to our next tactic here, Zach? Now, docks. Fishing docks has become hypercritical if you want to catch fish in the summertime in the Chesapeake Bay. I can't even stress how critical it's become. And here's the thing. In most areas of the bay, we're no longer fishing on schools of fish. Ain't going to happen, right? There are no big schools of rockfish. There are no big schools of, well, I mean, you get way down, there's some schools of big drum roving in open water. But general rule of thumb, you got to go after individual fish or small pods of fish. The exception is Baltimore, or has been Baltimore for the last few years, the Patapsco River in general. There have been some big schools up there. But those big schools that used to sit at the hill, those big schools that used to sit at the gooses, they're gone. They are just not around these days. So what do? Recalibrate, move in shallow, hit the docks. even though there aren't those big schools out there, there are groups of fish and individuals on docks throughout the shorelines, on the main stem bay, and into the tributaries. Couple things very particular to dock fishing. One is the more stuff there is, the better. So when you got a couple pilings off the side of the dock, that's better than just a straight dock. When you've got boards hanging off the dock, you know, old broken down pieces of dock, that's better than just a straight dock. Probably the most critical thing, once I'm going to say mid-June gets here, is getting under the docks. When you can pitch your jig under the dock, you're going to catch a lot more fish than if you drop it right off the end. If you're 5-6 feet away from the dock, forget about it. Once that sun gets up in the sky, these fish are sitting in the shade. They are not going to go 10 feet outside of the shade to chase your bait. You're either going to get bit when your jig is under or just outside of the shade. And it's become really important to learn how to skip baits. Some baits skip better than others. You know, it's a big bass fishing tactic, right? They skip them up underneath of the docks. If you can master that, you absolutely positively will do a lot better dock fishing. I should mention we have a feature on dock fishing as well. Peter wrote that. Peter Tursick wrote that. And it's not, it wasn't terribly long ago. I think maybe it ran last year. And it has some good tips and tactics for fishing the docks. But I'm going to say the number one most critical thing is being able to drop your jig either within inches of or actually underneath of that dock and fishing the shade. Now, when you're approaching a dock, look at it. The sun's, you know, not usually directly overhead, right? It's at an angle. One side of that dock, the shade will extend outside, you know, beyond the dock itself. That's the side you want to initially approach. That's where you want to go to. You want to fish that side. If you're approaching an entire shoreline of docks and you're going to work your way down the shore, which way are you going to approach from? Well, look at it. Which is the shady side and which is the sunny side? If you approach on the sunny side and then fish 10 docks in a row, you're making it harder on yourself to fish those docks. Oh, we're back to the popping corks. Well, here's popping cork. Let it drift out of, let it drift out of the dock and retrieve. You know what? That wouldn't be a bad idea. I like that. I like that. Of course, I'm not sure you can skip a popping cork. That's going to be a tall order. Why don't you go ahead and bring up the next slide, Zach, and we'll talk a little more about the docks here because one of the
stay away from my docks, by the way. Stay away from my docks this summer.
Oh, from your docks?
Yeah.
I'll be sure to. But one other thing we want to talk about here is choosing your docks, right? Because you don't want to just, you know, blindly pick a set of docks and go fish them. This dock right here is on a shoreline I really like to fish in the south. And there are a couple features that make this set of docks a good set to fish. The first is at the end of the docks, they've all got at least 4 feet of water on a low tide. I don't mean like a crazy low tide, a normal low tide. On high tide, they've got 6-7 feet of water. That's premium. That's premium. So if you're not sure where to go and whatever river you may be on, the Severn, the South, you know, the Choptank, the Pax, whatever, look at a bathymetric chart and try and find areas where a number of docks, you know, reach deeper water. That's generally going to be one of your better spots. Now, if you look closely at this photo, you'll see that where the dock hits the land, there's riprap. I really like that. I really like riprap, right? And on a high tide, I'm going to go in and fish where that pier meets the riprap, which is exactly where that redfish came from. He cast right in between the last piling and the rocks and didn't get that jig a foot out of there before this red hit. This gives it's a really good environment for these fish, both rock and reds. And this, you know, you'll get rock and reds mixed in these, assuming the redfish come back the way they did last year. I sure hope they do. But anyway, on a high tide, they'll be up there on the rocks, on the pier pilings, real close to the rocks. And then on a low tide, they'll be out towards the end of the pier, right? They're shuffling a little deeper. Not always true. Sometimes we'll be in shallower, particularly really cloudy days or early in the morning or late in the evening. But most of the time, once the sun's up, tide's falling, they're going to shuffle out. So a set of piers like this is really, really good. Now, another thing I want to point out, you can see from the angle of this photo, this was taken on my boat. This was on the Fish Talker. It's a 26-foot boat. There are piers on the other side of us. We got in between the piers. A mistake that I see a lot of guys make is they just cast to the end of the pier, and if they don't catch anything, they move to the next pier, then the next pier, then the next pier. That allows for some fast prospecting, but quite often the fish are going to be up inside. They're going to be tight on these piers up inside, and if you don't bring your boat in between the piers, you're never even going to know it. Now, I will stipulate here that not everybody can do that. My boat is about as big as you want to get to do that, and I've got the trolling motor on the bow. If I didn't have it, I would not be doing this, period. I wouldn't be doing it. The trolling motor on the bow allows you phenomenal control in close quarters, and then lets you hit a button and virtually anchor, right? You hit spot lock. Stupendous advantage for this kind of fishing. I would not try and drift in here. I have seen guys pull into spots like this and anchor. That'll work. It's much more difficult. You make a lot of noise with the anchor. You probably want to drop the anchor and then sit there for 10 minutes before you even try and cast, because you probably, alerted all the fish close by to your presence. This is also a phenomenal opportunity for you kayak guys. Zach, I'm sure you've never done this, right? This is, in this scenario where you're fishing docks that are on riprap, lined up along the shoreline, the kayak guys have got a big time advantage over the boat guys. They really do. You can bring that little boat right up wherever you want. You can get 10 feet from the dock and not spook the fish. You can flip underneath of them easily. It's really a phenomenal scenario for fishing kayaks. Dave's saying, just to confirm, the waters around docks are public. I had multiple people trying to trace me away from their docks, yelling that I was trespassing on private property. Not true. Dave, you are 1,000% correct. The property owner owns the dock, period. They don't own 1 inch of water. Now, sometimes they just don't know that. And I've also been yelled at more than once. I try and head it off if I see someone on a dock, wave, say hi, try and be nice. But I have had people just come at me with a total attitude on this, and I got the same response every time. Hey, look, I've got every right in the world to be here. This is a public resource. If you think I'm wrong, call the DNR. Report me to the DNR. And the NRP, I fished that. Oh, Mike, you can identify the dock. Dang it.
He lives right there.
Yeah, just invite them nicely and politely to report you to the DNR, because you believe you're within your rights. And if they think differently, they're welcome to call the DNR police. And the DNR police will tell them, no, they can do whatever they want to do, as long as they're not touching your property. That is 1,000% the way it is. I will say one thing. When you're casting these docks, you are going to be, on occasion, no matter how careful you are, you're going to snag. And there's a temptation to go up there and take your jig off the dock. I never do that. Zach, you've seen this in action, right? Am I right?
Oh, yeah.
I never do that. I won't. I will simply break my line off and call it a cost of business.
And then I go behind and collect all your expensive jigs.
I hope not. Don't get in trouble. No, seriously, you're allowed to cast under their dock and retrieve underneath and cast all around it. That is 100% legit, but you really can't go touch it. And then you give them ammunition. So, if you snag, you got to bite the bullet and break it off. That's really all you can do and stay within the bounds of the law. All right. So did we cover? I think we covered everything on that. we might want to go to our next tactic, Zach. And that's going to be vertical jigging for flounder. Now, I'll tell you why I popped this one in here tonight. 15, 18, 20 years ago, we had great flounder fishing. Oh my gosh, clear on up to the bridge. Gum Thickets was awesome. All through Eastern Bay was awesome. Off Poplar Island was awesome. Off Deal was awesome. We had great flounder fishing. I remember days, not that long ago, I mean, 18, 20 years ago, I remember days where I would go out and just go flounder fishing every day and catch my rockfish by accident, but I was flounder fishing. Well, all that came to a halt. And for maybe 6, 8 years now, we've been catching a lot of these little flounder, right? Like that big. And then last year, some keepers started showing up among them. Not many, but there were a few, mostly down at Point Lookout, some in the Patuxent. I'm sure there were some farther north. I didn't get any. That was 2 years ago. And then this past summer, some more showed up. And this past summer, I had a gazillion of those little guys, many that were just shy, and then 3 keepers. I took home 3 keepers, and that was fishing for redfish. I really was not fishing specifically for these fish. This fish right here was one from, he was down near the power plant, not right at it, but close to it on a ledge from 12 to 15. And that's a nice flounder. That's a nice flounder. That was a Middle Bay flounder. 3 keepers this year, and that was not the nicest, but that was a good one. There are more bigger flounder coming up the bay now. Let's hope that continues next year. If it does, you'll want to know about vertically jigging for them. All right, go ahead and take me to the next slide, please, Zach. So what I like for the vertical jigging, I'm not going to swear it's better than anything else, but I've always found it to be best, is that sort of split tail, straight plastic. I like the scented. I like the gulp. I like the jerk shad. The 4 and 5 inch jerk shads in white and chartreuse are my very favorites for this. Paddle tails, yes, you'll catch them vertical jigging, but I don't think as many. Twister tails, yes, you'll catch them vertical jigging, but I don't think nearly as many. And I think part of the reason for that is when this type of jig tail falls, it tends to do this, right? When the paddle tails and especially the twister tails fall, they tend to fall like this. They just have a different fall to them. Excuse me. And I really like how these work for vertical jigging. Now, when you're vertical jigging, what you really want to do is just a pop straight up and then let it drop as fast as possible while maintaining tension until it hits the bottom. Let it hit all the way down on the bottom. Let it hit. The very instant it hits, you got to pop it back up. Don't let it sit there for a half a second. The moment it hits, pop it back up. Let it fall, pop it back up. What's going to happen is you'll be doing that, and all of a sudden you'll snag bottom, right? You'll come up for that pop. You won't be setting the hook or feeling a fish. You'll come up for that pop, and you'll just feel complete resistance and realize you hooked the bottom. But then the bottom starts to swim away, and that's a great feeling. That's normally how the hits from these particular fish go in this particular scenario. So when you come up for your pop, do it firmly and with aggression, because that will in all likelihood end up being your de facto hook set. Now, what's really super duper critical for this, go ahead and take us to the next slide, Zach, please. What's super duper critical for this is boat positioning, okay? And this is the screen you want to have up. Chart plotter on the left, straight down to the right. And it's super duper important, and I'm going to show you why with one of my own personal magical artistic attempts. Go ahead and put it up there, Zach. I'm already embarrassed. This is what happens, people, when I try and do art stuff, which is why Zach is the production manager, and he does all the art stuff for Fish Talk, because I can't do that stuff. hopefully you can determine from my squiggly lines, what I was attempting to do here was show the contours of a drop off. You always want to be able to drop off for the flounder in the bay. Generally speaking, 12 to 22 is going to be the hot zone, maybe to 24 on a super low tide. But generally, it's 12 to 22 is sort of your hot zone. So if I'm looking at my chart plotter and I see these contours like this, I'm going to look for some anomaly on the edge, right? Whatever edge I want to fish. I want some kind of anomaly to work. You can see here I have one. And the red line at the bottom, the red line at the top is probably going to be my first drift. That's what's going to show up on my chart plotter. If I don't get any bites, I'm pulling back up to the top. I'm doing the red line in the middle. If I don't get any bites, I'm pulling back up to the top, doing red line on the bottom. Now, as soon as I get a bite, I'm going to mimic that exact line on my chart plotter. So I'm trying to park my boat exactly where I started at the time before so that I drift right across the exact same pattern. You got to be really precise with this because the flounder, I don't know if they really school like a schooling fish, but they definitely gather along the same kind of spots on a drop off. And you can see here, I've got a wind blowing me this way. I got a current pushing me that way. And I'm parking my boat so that I go over that anomaly. Now, the depth that you catch your fish at is also utterly critical. If I catch a flounder in, let's say it was on 18 feet, right? The moment I hooked up, I looked at my fish finder, I saw where I was, I looked at the depth. Let's say it was 18 feet. My next drift, even though I'm going to try and go right down that same line, I'm probably not going to go all the way up to the top to 10, 12 feet to get back along that. I'm going to go up to like 15, right? In all likelihood, you're going to get your repeat bites within 2 or 3 feet of depth of where that first one came. Sure, there are exceptions. Of course, there are exceptions. But the bulk of the time, if you catch one in 15 feet of water, you're going to catch the next and the next and the next in 15 feet of water. You know, maybe it'll be 14, maybe it'll be 16. It's going to be really close. They really like to hold in that same depth zone. Now, that'll change as the tide changes, right? And as the current changes. But for the time being, you get that hook up, you want to mimic it, you want to keep going, you want to work that same depth, you know? And then maybe, you know, the bite slows, you drift a little deeper, you find you get one a little deeper. Steve's asking what size jig head. Well, that's going to depend on the depth, right? As a general rule of thumb, I like an ounce. An ounce I can usually make work popping bottom from 12 to 22. But on a windy day, that might get a little tough. I might go to 1.5 ounces. On a really dead calm day, I might go to 3/4 of an ounce. But Steve, use 1 ounce as kind of a starting point for this. And then as you go deeper, or as the wind picks up, or as the current's stronger, whatever, you know, kind of modulate accordingly. You got to remember, you got to be banging bottom, and we're trying to vertical jig here. We're not trying to let out 1,000 yards of line and have a whole big angle, you know, whole big angle coming off the boat on your line. And now you're just barely feeling that jig tapping bottom. No, you want this as up and down as possible. You want to be banging bottom and popping up. So start with that ounce and then kind of, you know, work from there. Okay. Well, here comes Walt. What bottom type? Soft mud hard. So with the flounder, I'm not sure the bottom type, they like sandy bottom. I'm not sure the bottom type, though, is going to be so critical because you're working an edge, and the edges usually aren't like mud. They usually aren't shell, usually sort of, you know, kind of a hard bottom, maybe sandy. That's kind of normally we're going to be working with. There are exceptions. Trying to think of a good one to point out. But, you know, there are times when you're going to have like a rocky area and then a sharp drop.
The swash.
What's that?
The Swash Bay and Watch Pretty. It's a
okay. There's a
rocky, oystery bottom, and then you get into those channels, and it's drop off, and it
drops off like a cliff. Yeah. And those are good edges for flounder, right? They like those edges. So it's got, you know, I guess it's pretty variable, but it's generally not going to be mud. or soft. You know what's really super duper interesting? I like sand. Okay. What's super duper interesting is a bajillion years ago when we had winter flounder in the bay, which to my knowledge, I haven't heard of one in years. I haven't caught one myself. My God, it's probably in my 20s the last time I caught one. But when we had winter flounder, they like mud. You would go to a mud bottom to look for the winter flounder. I don't know what happened to them. They are like long gone.
Those are flukes, right?
No, fluke's a summer flounder.
Okay.
Now the winter flounder is a very different fish. It's a flounder, but it's almost like a more of a diamond shape, and they don't get as large as summer flounder. I 10 years ago I would have said that they still get them up north, but I haven't even heard of them from up north recently. I don't know. Once upon a time in a galaxy far, far away in the historical record, you can find mentions of salmon that ran into the bay. So, different age, different fish, but I don't know what happened to the winter flounder. All right, well, people, that's what I got for you on those 3 tactics. If you got any questions on them, pop them in the comments right now, because I think, oh yeah, we're not close on time, we're at time, but that's okay. We can hang out. If you got any questions on any of those tactics, the current fisheries, or heck, anything else, just pop them on in there. Excuse me. John's saying he smoked mom?
Smacked him.
Oh, smacked him on the edge of poplar outside age 18 to 22. John, are you talking about flounder? Is that flounder? Because the outer edge of poplar used to be, man, that was my favorite spot for him. And I haven't caught him there in several years. I haven't tried there in a long time. Is he talking flounder? I hope he's talking flounder. I hope they're there. Come on, John. Let me know. Let me know. Please bring him back. That used to be such a great spot. 18 to 22. Yeah, man. Walt's saying sand, so the jig disturbs the sand at the bottom of a drop off. I know that little puff. They like that little puff, man. That's one of the reasons you want to bang bottom. You get that little puff. They come over. And it's fascinating. Flounder are much more aggressive, active fish than most people really realize. If you YouTube, what is in your hand, Zach? That cat is huge.
Yeah, it's a big cat.
Its head is as large as yours is. That's bizarre how big that cat is.
Yeah.
Does it weigh more than your blue cat?
Pretty close.
Yeah, anyway, if you YouTube flounder underwater videos and just watch some of the underwater videos people have shot the flounder, like they're up and moving, man. They don't sit there nearly as much as everyone thinks they do. I'm disturbed by the size of that cat.
He's probably like 30 pounds. John says, yes, smacked him years ago. He was saying, I think that's referring to.
Years ago. Okay, yeah. Years ago, I remember as early as the Rockfish opener, right after opening day of Rockfish, like a week later, we'd be going there and looking for them. And I also remember chumming for Rockfish at the Hill, probably in the 90s. When you went chumming for Rockfish, every now and again, you catch a flounder by accident on your bunker chunk.
We used to catch them in the 90s at Thomas Point Shoal.
Yes, Thomas. That's right. Thomas Point used to be a great spot for him. That's absolutely true.
So Dave's asking blue cats in the South or Severn.
So Dave, I don't know, man. I have had a hard time finding the blue cats in the South. I tried last spring. I mean, I say that. I've only tried a couple times, but I tried a couple times last spring. I didn't find them. I believe our Catfish Sharpie, who tipped us off on the Potomac bite, Mike, I believe he has had success on them. And I know that Dylan, our reports editor, Dylan Wooders, he had success on them at the mouth of the West, and that last spring. And what's really interesting is he caught him shallow. He was fishing in like 5-6 feet of water. He tried in the channel, didn't do a thing. Moved a little shallower, didn't do a thing. Moved up into like 5-6 feet of water and caught him. As to the when, that was April. That was in April. And I think, Mike got him in April too. Is that right? Do you know? I'm not sure, but I know Dylan got him in April because it was basically when, historically we would have been either prepping up for the rock opener or fishing the rock opener. And they're really, the perch run was kind of done and there wasn't anything else to fish for. That's when we were doing it, April.
They've got to be in there though. They're everywhere. But
absolutely, they might be there right now. They may well be there right now.
Mike saying he saw a few blues in the Severn, mostly channel, mouth of Magathy. Yeah, the guys at Sandy Point were trout line. When they started that trout line license for $15 last year, they were trout lining right off of Sandy Point. And our buddy Junior Jimenez, he was catching.
He had it
right off the beach.
He had a great bite off the beach. Absolutely. And the mouth of the Magathy, right off Pedickery. I have fished up there in April and done very well on blue cats before. Well, bunker on bottom.
Well, thanks for tuning in. Thank you, Mike. Appreciate it. Thank you, Dave. Awesome contributions by the audience. And
thanks for tuning in.
And Mike's chiming in again. Nighttime at Sandy Point with a good service.
Ooh.
And those Akuma cat slayers are UV coated and super fluorescent for night sight.
I'm waiting for the opportunity to take the cat slayers out at night because I want to see it. You can see in the pictures they glow, but I want to see it.
So check out our latest video on our YouTube channel. We had some requests for Rumble. Everyone's asking about Rumble. I don't know if we should be on Rumble. If you guys are on Rumble, let us know. Rumble's the new alternate to YouTube. So
what?
I don't know.
Rumble. I've never heard of it. Okay.
I'm not sure if our streaming service shoots it over to Rumble yet. So
I'm gonna Google Rumble when we get off.
It looks just like YouTube. I mean, I don't know why people don't like YouTube. Maybe the commercials. I don't really know.
Okay.
And just a reminder, everybody, the Great Invasive count goes for a few more weeks, and it will probably most likely reset April 1st. And so it's a great opportunity to get out there during the rockfish closure. It gives you something to target. I smoked them. It made some good, and I kind of need some more. That
was so good. The blue cats smoke up awesome.
Yeah, Jesse Howe from CCA gave me some last fall, and I was like, "This is amazing!" So I got to do this, and
that worked.
I guess it's healthier than fried. I'm not really sure all that salt and sugar. I don't know, but who cares?
All right. Well, thank you, CCA, for. I'm so psyched. I won prizes. I won the tools. I'm excited. People joining the Invasives count. It's cool you can win stuff, and it's good for the scientists to give them the knowledge of where these fish are, how big they are. And thank you for tuning in tonight. We appreciate it. And shucks, we'll catch you next month.
And just to reiterate, thanks everybody, and tune in to the fishing reports. We'll go live by no later than noon tomorrow, sometimes tonight. So check that in the early morning if you're getting out this weekend, and be sure to hit those upcoming fishing shows. Have a great night.
Woo, closing.